This is a beautifully constructed meta-analysis. Now, originally what it had was 10 randomized controlled trials incorporated into this meta-analysis, which showed incredible benefit, but not just benefit. They postulate on how apple cider vinegar does its magic in regard to weight loss. But it had 10 RCTs. But however, though, got an alert. September 25th, one of the RCTs was retracted. Retracted does not mean discredited. So the one RCT they pulled from the British Medical Journal had such profound results, about a 7-point drop, for example, in BMI, that they wanted to look at the math. Chances are, after reviewing the study, the sample size may be a little small to get the p-value that they got, meaning that the power rating of the study was probably compromised to be being a small population. Technical, but just the same, the researchers stand by their results. And two, it's a little bit of a bureaucratic thing. The British Medical Journal want to see trial registration as well as institutional approval, in which case they had institutional approval, but they didn't have the trial registered, yielding us 9 RCTs to work from as opposed to 10. Beside that, here we go. All right, using the 9. 1.5 pounds on average per week. A lot of these studies went between 4 to 12 weeks. So what it is, it broke down the average weight loss per week on the apple cider vinegar. And about an average, these trials, about a 1.5-point drop. If we include the one retracted study, it'd be about 2-point BMI drop, just to give you an idea. We'll get into that in a second. So they used 9 trials, 731 participants, and it went 4 to 12 weeks. And here is the information prior to the one RCT being pulled for review. All right, let's get into the study as follows. Effective apple cider vinegar intake on body composition in humans with type 2 diabetes and or overweight. A systematic meta-review analysis of randomized controlled trials. The backstory. In particular, apple cider vinegar is one of the most commonly used plant-based products globally, both as a perspective and as a food flavoring. Apple cider vinegar is produced through a 2-step fermentation process of apple juice, yeast bacteria convert fruit sugars into ethanol, while second-step ethanol is oxidized into acetic acid. In addition to acetic acid, which is the main active ingredient, apple cider vinegar contains numerous bioactive molecules, including polyphenolic compounds such as caffeic acid, catechin, gallic acid, and ferulic acid, which may exert beneficial effects on human health as well. Ferulic acid is a big one. In particular, apple cider vinegar has been shown promising effects in improving glycemic control, insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, and reducing oxidative stress, making it a potential adjunctive strategy in the management of metabolic disorders such as obesity, diabetes, dyslipidemia, and some studies suggest that apple cider vinegar supplementation may reduce body weight and total fat mass. Hence, the review of the meta-analysis looking into BMI and weight, and there's where we pick up. Now, the other paragraph, here we go, because science is always up to debate. Despite the widespread consumption of apple cider vinegar for its purported health benefits, scientific evidence supporting its anti-obesity effects remain limited. A recent meta-analysis, which examined studies conducted up to 2022, basically reported that apple cider vinegar consumption had no significant effect on body mass index, the BMI, which we just saw was a 1.5, even removing the one trial which they want to redo the maths, so to say. However, this analysis does not consider body weight or other body composition parameters. That's the backstory. Now, chart 2, how it works. This is what they discovered. This is what they're looking at. So a 1.5-point drop in BMI basically attributed to about an 8 to 12 pound loss. The one study that they wanted to pull because that's powerful, profound effects had a 7-point BMI. We'll look at that in a second. The nitty-gritty drop. Basically, the questions answered. There were multiple ways of taking it. There was lack of some standardization. So you really need to do a really good, solid trial following these other trials as well, just to confirm. All right, and also too, some people change exercise and diet as well. So we need to clear all that up. Regardless, just the same, apple cider vinegar seemed to work very well at the 30 milliliter level as opposed to the 5 to 15. So about 2 tablespoons, it was significantly more effective. That's information for you. All right, now how it works. Due to the fact we're limited in time, I'm going to kind of cherry pick some information from this one section. So bear with me. Acetic acid has been shown to slow gastric emptying, So basically, when we look at the other chart before and how it works, let's bring that back up. So it'll give you a good idea. So before we get into detail, the fullness factor, the metabolic master switch, and the gut health connection. Now we shall go into detail. You can look at that in a second. Boom. Let's begin. All right. Acetic acid has been shown to slow gastric emptying and increase the feeling of satiety, helping to reduce caloric intake. All right. Also improving B cell function, therefore enhancing insulin secretion and reducing the postprandial glucose response while also limiting insulin spikes, which promote adipose tissue accumulation. Apple cider vinegar can activate the enzyme, this is an important one, AMP, activated protein kinase. In activation, the please forgive me as I skip ahead, AMPK pathway promotes glucose uptake and free fatty acid oxidation in skeletal muscle and inhibits glucogenesis, glycolysis, and lipogenesis and cholesterol formation in the liver, which leads to the next part. Furthermore, apple cider vinegar is shown to have lipid-lowering effects. All right, you get the mechanisms there. So apple cider vinegar is just something more than a food flavoring. You could see they postulate the biochemical pathways in which apple cider vinegar yields these particular outcomes in these other 9, possibly 10 gold standard randomized controlled trials. All right, now conclusion. In conclusion, apple cider vinegar may represent a valuable nutritional intervention for managing obesity, particularly when combined with appropriate lifestyle modifications. However, further studies are needed to determine the true efficacy and safety of apple cider vinegar in the prevention and treatment of obesity. All right, now, as promised, let's look at the study as a whole real fast. The one that was retracted, because it's actually kind of interesting. Retracted does not mean discredited. Basically, again, to reiterate what I postulate the British Medical Journal saw, since the results were so profound, and this is a good thing, that they want to review the data. However, they're having a hard time replicating the data, but not necessarily the outcome, but the p-values, which are real important to determine the credibility and stringency of the study itself. So what I'm guessing is the power rating to obtain these probability values at such an incredible significant level was a little low, probably due to a population size being too small to yield the p-value that they're looking for. And again, medical research, data science is not a subset of medical research. Medical research, to the statistician, is a subset of data science. All right, so let's look at the study real fast. There's our raw data, and of course, the one study in question. 2, the retractions to track the study. You see the results? That was on par with prescription drugs, and that's what caught the attention. And the British Medical Journal said, hey, all right, let's pull this for a little bit, and let's look at it a little further in depth. And here is the article from BMJ. That's the response. As you can see, further independent scrutiny because the results were so incredible. And on top of that, they say it could take several months. Problem is, the public hears the word retraction. The media runs with the word retraction, thinking, oh, it must be discredited. No, the results were so profound. The researchers, for example, here's your debate, stand by their results. But however, though, due to the fact the results were so incredible, obviously, you want future independent inspection of that particular data. All right, also too, for the medical professional as well, there's your data. You want to look at the meta-analyses that were included. Again, originally did 10. I tried not to add it to publisher bias because this was really good meta-analysis, but unfortunately, meta-analysis is like a house of cards. If one study in that meta-analysis gets questioned or pulled, well, what happens to the whole entire outcome of that study, the meta-analysis itself? Henceforth, we just redid the math based upon the RCTs that were incorporated in the original meta-analysis. But again, incredible, incredible. You have the gratitude to basically gratitude to the researchers. Wonderful combination of studies they pulled together. Great job in postulating the possible reasons why ACV, apple cider vinegar, has such a profound effect on health. And 2, gratitude that you watch. I look forward to seeing what you and I discover next week. And please forgive the speed at which I speak. I mean, I could use basically, what do you call it, podcast speech, where you speak slow and entrained and so on and so forth. at that particular syncopation, but then it'd be a very, very long video. All right, catch you all next time. See you then. Bye.